All right, so we're gonna kind of be doing some custom models here for the AMD cards, mostly because they're the only cards that we have custom models for. That's why we didn't do any with the NVIDIA stuff. We're gonna start here with the Sapphire Nitro Plus. In my opinion, one of the sexiest looking AMD cards that have come out so far this particular generation. The Evolve X2 PC Tower from Fantex redefines the desktop computer with its see-through glass design, aluminum interior, and powerful vertical cooling solution necessary for today's high-end hardware. The vertical airflow design draws in fresh air from the bottom and expels warm air out the top via a slanted grille design, moving warm air away from the user. An integrated cable management, support for BTF and Project Zero cable systems, and rear motherboard door concealing all wiring makes the Fantex Evolve X2 one of the cleanest towers available today. To see the full list of specs and CR coverage of the Fantex Evolve X2, follow the sponsored link in the description below. Okay, so today's gonna be kind of an unboxing and just kind of looking around at the card. I am gonna put this through all of the test bench suite that we do. It's just, it takes a long time now to get through a single card with all of the tests that we run on it. It's heavy for the size that it kind of is. Anyway, breaking the seal together. Dang it, I keep knocking them over. Because I wanted this to be a raw unboxing. Phil was commenting that the box reminds him of like early 2000s gaming boxes. Like, oh, the only thing that's missing is just like boobs, to be honest.
Sexy fairy ladies.
Yeah, I mean, let's just be honest. Anyway, this is the 9070 XT Nitro Plus. This is their top tier card. Comes in at $729, so it's actually cheaper by 20 bucks than the XFX Mercury card that we took a look at, the Magnetic Air. We'll compare it to that card in terms of size, and on the charts when we do the actual full test of this card and do the like third-party comparisons of how they perform. Because remember how I said in the review that they have some play to mess around with on power limit and stuff? So they could actually have some serious variance between, say, more reference style cards all the way up to their like, you know, fully unlocked cards. Anyway, holy sh! Feel the weight of that backplate.
The backplate? Oh!
So here's the other marketing material that you get with it. Quick start installation guide. Oh yes, this one uses a 12 volt high power connector. But even if it is pulling 340 watts, that is safe for the, excuse me, it's 12 volt 2x6. At least is what that is saying. I gotta say this first and foremost though. To me, just glancing at it, and with this light bar right here, it does feel very Asus Astrial-y in terms of its design, but I think that's gonna be purely by coincidence if it shares any sort of design cues from that, because these had to have been in development around the same time. That was, unless they were like literally espionaging on each other, there'd be no reason to assume these cards have any intention to look like each other. I see some screws around this little like shroud right here. I wanna see if this pops off. And if it does, what does it look like with it off? Like, could you run it on and off? Let's see what else we get here. I'm assuming we're gonna get some sort of a 12 volt high power / 12 volt 2x6 adapter. Yes, we do. That's quite the long pigtail right there. Not as nice as the ones that come with the NVIDIA cards, but they are like, they've got these plastic shields on at least the PCI Express end. So it does go to 3 8-pin PCI Express. And then it's got this blue on here, that way you can tell if it starts to back out, any of that blue starts showing. It's kind of like how MSI has the yellow. Some brands have started putting color in there just so you can notice that. But it just has a regular fabric, kind of a sleeve right here to sort of hold it all together. As long as your bend radius stays outside of that, then you should be good. But because it's not like, I mean, it's crimped down under there, I can feel there's like a big plastic piece right here that all the cables are terminating into. The cable, as you can see, is right here. So instead of coming out the face of the card or the back, they're just like, let's utilize this flow through gap. And I love how it's got this like neoprene padding right here to protect the fins. So if you're starting to, you know what, let's just get an actual cable instead of this funky thing. So let's say you're running your cable here, but well, you have to run it there. It's kind of an odd angle to sort of plug this in. But now you put that there, then you take your back plate, which is magnetic, and then your cables are, that is actually pretty sick.
It's like a way to do BTF without having to fully support BTF.
As long as this isn't spitting out right into the case, like you're still gonna have to be able to get this into wherever it goes through your case. But that is actually pretty neat. But that neoprene there definitely gives it some protection so you're not bending up fins. Unfortunately, one thing I want to point out though is the cable naturally kind of wanted to go right here where there is none. Like it wanted to go like that. But you could, as long as you're careful, kind of put a little bit of a tighter radius on there. There's the ARGB header, as I said. So if you wanted to have your case or anything else kind of match the lighting effect of your graphics card without having to try and get the same effect happening on your motherboard and your graphics card, you can just use this to control your lights or send a signal to the hub or however you want to do that. But this magnetic backplate like this, that is a very neat idea. I like that a lot. Holy cow. Sapphire has definitely outdone themselves in the design on this one. So it is a 3-slot design, well, maybe with the backplate, it could potentially overhang a little bit, but this is a side that would go to your, like the top slot of your motherboard anyway, which should be an NVMe for most motherboards these days. Anyway, it is a 3-slot design. The cooler does tie into the bracket right here, so it gives it alternate rigidity, so you're not gonna be sitting there having it, sag on you too poorly. Does have 2 DisplayPort 2.1a and 2 HDMI. That's going to be interesting because people that are running triple monitor might not be happy with the fact that they have only 2 DisplayPort 2.1a output. Now you could run HDMI to DisplayPort adapter, but in terms of just keeping it simple when it comes to any sort of a surround setup, I forget what NVIDIA or AMD calls it. It's been so long now. Is it Infinity? I think they call it something like that. I can't remember. Anyway, just having 3 of the same plug is going to make life easier. So I'm kind of surprised that they went this route instead of just having, I'm wondering if they could have had 3 DisplayPort 2.1a and then 2 HDMI. Now having the extra HDMI is kind of nice. The reason for that is a lot of people liking to run sensor panels and stuff now. If you run a sensor panel, you usually utilize the only HDMI, but I know that they didn't want to necessarily just no longer support those people that want to also run HMDs or VR headsets, which are almost always running HDMI. Some are actually moved up to like DisplayPort and such, but HDMI having more than one is a nice thing. I've kind of complained that we only have 1 HDMI in most graphics cards now, but I wouldn't want to give up a DisplayPort for it. So kind of a trade-off there. This is just the RGB adapter that comes with it. And then this is it basically ties into the mounting slot. This is the anti-sag support bracket. So the way these brackets work, let's say we're installed in our motherboard this way, you overlap the screws like that, and then you're just giving it more tie-in like that to be able to keep the card from sagging. Now, fortunately, this is adjustable. So they have one bracket that works with all their cards. That way you can make sure the actual padded part looks like it has multi-axis axis adjustment. Make sure it's not pushing into your fan blade because that would obviously be a problem. I feel like this card itself, because of the way it's tied in, wouldn't actually have a whole lot of sag. But I do want to take these screws off the faceplate right here and see what happens. I want to know if you can run that without the faceplate, just out of morbid curiosity. Now, when I did the XFX teardown, I talked about how it was one of the easiest cards to tear down. This one's gonna obviously have quite a bit more screws because you have to start with this area here. This is plastic, so you need to be careful with it. I mean, I guess you could run it without it if you wanted.
It actually doesn't look that bad.
No, it doesn't. Definitely has that beefy industrial look. I guess you could even 3D print something else different if you wanted. Make sure you're using like ABS or PLA Plus at least, because this is gonna be enough heat still, even at 340 watts, to warp PLA. So you're gonna wanna run like probably ABS or maybe even some sort of a metal infused, like carbon or something like that could be pretty neat. But I'm wondering if they're gonna be providing STOs so that you can come in here and print your own, but it's pretty neat. There's nothing attached to this that would make it impossible to print your own. That way I said, I kind of don't like the triangle design. Like, I think this is a cleaner look and I like that a lot, especially with the diffused light bar all the way across. But once you put that on, in my opinion, the gray doesn't match perfectly. It's like a slightly different shade of gray. And I guess you could pop this off and spray paint it too if you wanted something different. But being able to print other ones would be really neat. In fact, I'm gonna have Nick get on that before we do this full review to see if the STO for this exists. If it does, boom. So let me go ahead and get this reattached. It might be interesting too to do a temperature test both on and off to see if this does impact performance of cooling in any way. I mean, it's fairly open flow through, like the porosity on this would be something like crazy. I'm sure it's well over like 75%. Means 25% or less is going to be blocked off, but that's still impacting airflow. You'll see what I mean as to why I feel like some of the design cues are very ROG Astrally, not like a copy, but some of the cues, because that's the ROG Astral right there. So this is the 5090 Astral. I did buy this. I paid retail, not scalped price. So yeah, I definitely overpaid for this. But that's because I plan on using this thing for XOC leaderboards. I literally bought it just to see what I can do to try and get back on the board higher up, because it's been a long time since I've done XOC stuff, and I just want to get back involved with it. So if you look at the leaderboard, apparently this is a card you got to go with, because in like the top 20, like all but like 5 or 6 of them are the ROG Astral. So, okay, so the Nitro Plus comes in at 1,800 and approximately 90 grams. If we put that into pounds, that's 4 pounds, 2.6 ounces. 3 kilograms, 42 grams, so 3,420 grams. That puts this at 6.1 pounds, but it is far heavier than any graphics card I've ever put with a water block. And I've put on the 4090 Strix, I put the double block on my friend's build that has like the water block on the front and the back, and it was like this heavy. So anyway, this is not about this card. In fact, all I did was give you guys ammunition to give me a hard time about buying that card, but it is what it is, and then I want to do XOC stuff, and I've been trying with the FE card and the Zotac card, and none of those make the cut. So it is what it is. Back to this guy right here. It's a sexy design though. I do love it. If I were to print a new piece for this, I would probably do black, to be honest. I'd do black or either some sort of a carbon or metallic-y, maybe even a bronze, like the bronze infused metal would be really neat.
Would you do like a straight grill instead of the crosshatch?
Yeah, definitely. Straight with grid. Like I don't like the cross hatching. That to me detracts from the overall look of it. Yeah, so the lighting is very well diffused. You couldn't really tell where the individual LEDs were if it wasn't for the different colors when it boots up in RGB mode. Now you're gonna have to use the Sapphire software to be able to control the RGB on this. I didn't try it with Open RGB or Signal RGB or any of that yet to see if they can see and control it. Sometimes they can. The card's so new, they may or may not be able to. I'll tell you this though, I don't think a backplate like this will be much of an issue. They do have, it is perforated, so anywhere heat needs to come through, it potentially could, with the exception of where the logo is. They made that solid, right? These cards do not create a lot of heat, so I'm not too concerned about any of the radiating heat coming off the back of the card getting trapped with a backplate that is literally nothing more than aesthetic. This is an aesthetic backplate. It serves no purpose other than to make it prettier. That's it. When it's installed on the test bench though, or any PC, or any case, it's awesome with the way that the wires are hidden here. It truly looks like a BTF type of card. Because essentially it is a BTF, only it's just not physically like socketed as such. It's hiding the cable entirely so you can't see it, which is really nice, making this among the cleanest cards that you can install, period, end of story. There's one last thing I want to do before we get out of here. I'm impressed with the price, as much as that might get me beat up to say, because it is cheaper than the XFX card, but I do think it's an overall smaller design. In my opinion, personally, subjectively, I like the aesthetics of this card over the XFX card. The XFX card, here's the black one. This is the Mercury, or not the Mercury, this is the Quick, but it's got this very angular, very spaceshipy kind of design, which isn't bad. It's just, I prefer the more blocky style like this. I personally like this blockiness. So oh, I got thermal paste on the cooler. I guess I'll have to clean that off later. Anyway, so this aesthetically and size-wise is very comparable, but I do like the squareness of this right here, but that's purely subjective. That's where you guys have to sign off below whether or not you like this particular design. The gray might throw some people off. I think a lot of people might have liked it if it were black, maybe with gray accents, but you know, this gray is better than doing blue and red and stuff like other brands have done in the past. In fact, Sapphire in the past used to have their cards be like almost like a baby blue because that's their company color. But I like that they kind of got away with that, or going with more neutral colors like this that will work in other builds without having to feel like it's clashing. One last thing I want to do before we get out of here, there's a barcode on this box. It's a QR code and it says switch to Radeon. So I really want to look and see where it takes us. It has been a long time since we've seen any sort of landing page like this And if we open in browser, your next upgrade is almost here. Meet the next gen Radeon RX 9000. Okay, so it's just taking you to the AMD landing page of all the specs and stuff of 90 series, which I'm assuming that page will update once the card is, by the time you see this video, it'll be out, but I'm sure they'll upgrade and be like, your card is here, or whatever. All right, here you go. This is the Sapphire Nitro Plus, the 9070 XT. I like it. I like it a lot. I'll give you a quick teaser. I did throw it on a test bench. It does go up to 350 watts from the power cable, which means it is pulling 340 watts TDP, which means it should be able to get pretty high sustained boost clocks. And we'll see how it compared to other cards as we get through the test bench. So stay tuned for that review. And hopefully you guys are enjoying the reviews. We've done a lot more information, but it's still easy to digest. And I think it just makes it more valuable overall. So, all right, guys, thanks for watching. And as always, we'll see you in the next one. Why am I holding it like a gun? I don't know, because when NVIDIA's over there.